Welcome back. We're on Equal Time Soccer once again. I'm Mark Pavratsky here, joined to do a little bit of NSIC talk. We have a senior captain from UMD, Anna Tobias, joining us. Later, Matt is going to join us so we can talk a little bit about Maddie Darlene in the knockout rounds of the U20 World Cup. Our Minnesotan we've been watching, she scored again, spoiler alert. A little bit of Gophers, little St. Thomas, and we'll see what else we have time for. But Anna, we're going to start with I think the best anecdote of your soccer career, a record you probably wouldn't even really think about. I think you even said that when you got it. But for people who didn't see last year, and the good context of this as well is weeks before, your teammate had scored like the two fastest goals in a row, Jackie Jers, and we had interviewed her. And then like a week or two later, Anna said, "Hold my Gatorade," and scored a hat trick in 68 seconds. Talk about what you remember, because so it was a 5-0 win, not crazy to have a hat trick, but it wasn't, it was against Crookston. It wasn't some game that was 12, where there were just goals and goals all game. Talk about what you remember when you think back on that day.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Jackie did actually, I think it was about a week before, had that record, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I hated to steal her thunder there, but we've always had a fun, competitive, super friendly relationship. So that was great. I was proud of her. She was proud of me. That was awesome. But as for the game, so I remember it was Crookston. You never know how that game's going to go. We've played there and struggled, to get some goals. And we were at home this year, and it was 0-0 at half. We had most of the possession. I know we were just drilling it down their throats, trying to score. And we were missing that final piece. I think we had one goal that was called off sides. Their goalie was making some insane saves. We were just missing the net. And so at halftime, we were like, all right, we got to focus in here. And I remember my coach, Greg, he was like, all right, we're moving you from the outside forward to center forward. We just got to get the goals going. Floodgates. Yeah. We got to see you do something. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. And so we get out there. I think it was a few minutes into the half, and scored a goal. Morgan crossed it in, set me up super nice. If I missed that goal, I was maybe 4 feet from the net. It would have been bad if I missed. So that one happened. I was like, great. Now we're on the board. Let's get it rolling. And then I guess it was only a few seconds later when another teammate, Lauren Hansen, she played me a long ball, and I ran onto it, finished. I was, wow, that's another goal. That's awesome. Let's get it going. I didn't think it was only a few seconds. I thought it was maybe a few minutes. Yeah. And then same thing happened. Another teammate played me through. I dribbled and shot and scored. And I was like, that was probably the fastest goals I've scored. I wasn't thinking about a record or anything. Yeah. I was just focused on winning. And so I was like, thank God. Now 3-0, hopefully we can, relax a little. And that's all I remember. Nothing came to my mind until after the game when people were talking about some sort of record, and I was like, cool. But they thought I was like number 2 in the record book. They thought I just missed it. And I was like, hey, I still like that. That's cool. Yeah. About an hour later, I got a call from the coach, and he was like, yeah, I guess officially you have the record. And I was like, wow.
I wonder how they check it so fast. But yeah, I mean, and it is cool. I think I did see in one image, like you did get a plaque for it. Like it's like something you get to have. Cool to have stuff like that when you're someday done playing. You described it. I just watched the hat trick, because UMD is one of the programs that does pretty good highlights of their games a lot of the time for people who want to watch highlights. We'll repost them a lot. But yeah, cleaned up a ball that like went in through, and you were like at the 6-yard line. Then it was a really nice ball over the top where you ran through behind the defenders. And then the fourth one was like a turnover, but it was when you were in that 9th spot. So, I mean, shout out to, I guess, Coach Kane knows something about making halftime adjustments, because it looks like that was the move.
Yep, he knew what he was doing, I guess. So there you go.
I mean, so now back down to earth, because you had a somewhat tough, although a really challenging schedule to start non-conference play. You play these teams a lot. You play Michigan Tech, you play Northern Michigan, both teams that were in the tournament last year, really successful teams. So you had a tougher opener, 1-6 with Northern Michigan, who they won a bit more last year. But then you come back a lot tougher, close, gritty loss to Michigan Tech, 0-1 at home. what do you take away from those? The cliche of course, like, you just have to take the positives into the next round. But, were there things, you spotted in your own game or in the setup and what you need to do to lead the squad of how you adjust to NSIC play now?
Yeah. So both those teams always very good competition. We played them all 4 of my years here. Northern Michigan is always, top team. I think that's one of the best teams I've played in my whole college career. Like that team specifically, they didn't mess up and they capitalized on all of our mistakes as well. And it's early in the season. We have a lot of new players. We're still adjusting, figuring it out. We lost a player early on to an injury that kind of shook some of us up. And we just weren't able to recover. We did play better in the second half. I think it was more of just a wake-up call, I guess, for our team. And as bad as it was, at least we figured it out early in the season. And we had another chance to redeem ourselves 2 days later with Michigan Tech. And I have a good friend who plays for Michigan Tech, Grace Hepner, and we were actually talking about after the game. I was like, I love playing your team always. It's always been within about a goal or so.
Yeah.
We've won, we've tied, they've won. So I think we're just very level, equally matched teams. And it's anyone's game anytime we play. Unfortunately, we weren't able to put that one away. They had a good goal that we couldn't come back from it either, but I was really proud of my team coming from that hard loss on Thursday, just turning it around and, having that resilience. I think we worked really hard. We still have so much to work on, but I think we improved a lot in those 2 days.
I mean, so you said you like having the tough matchups. I was kind of wondering because certain of the NSIC teams really always have some really tough regional matchups. Like, of course, Minnesota State does it a lot, but Mid-U State will rotate kind of playing those Michigan schools too. But some of the other teams, the conference is really tough. So they actually try to start out with maybe some easier games. Maybe they play like a D3 school. Maybe they play a lesser opponent. Is there ever a year where you were like, gosh, I wish we maybe could have just gotten momentum from getting people going early?
Yeah. So we do tend to scrimmage early on in preseason, some D3 teams. Scholastica, they're our neighboring school here. We scrimmage them. And so that was nice. But I mean, I think I'd rather start off with the super hard teams and then, build instead of, feeling good and a little overly comfortable if you play maybe some of those lesser quality teams.
Yeah.
And going into the NSIC, it could be a big shock, a big wake-up call. I think Northern Michigan, especially, I don't think we'll have a harder game than that.
Yeah.
It was our first game. They're a really great team. So, it would be nice to gain some confidence with some of these lesser quality teams, but I think I would actually prefer playing the harder teams first, just to improve as fast as
you really do have to find where there are just moments, because you can have a shock result or at least a tough game against the bottom of the teams in the Northern Sun, but teams have to find and hope, I feel like, each year that they get a stretch where they can get a little run like that. Like, I looked at your schedule and I kind of saw that, you have a stretch at one point where you play Augustana and you play BSU, but then you have a stretch of teams who finished maybe out of the tournament. So, you hope that then you can work on squad depth and figure some things out. You also know you can't ever really rest on anything. So you're looking at this year. One of the cool things about UMD as a program, like some of the other programs we follow, you get local TV, so it makes it fun for us because we can actually, you get a little context of it. But you were on there as one of the senior captains talking about its ring season, not only for you, but for the college too, I guess probably for all the fall sports. Did that come from you? Did it come from the coach, Greg, as a tone setting? Where did that come from?
Yeah. So over the summer, I met with Coach Kane just to kind of, prepare for this upcoming season. And one question I remember him asking me was, so you have a theme or a motto for this season? And I was like, I don't know. I wasn't really prepared for that question. And so I started thinking, I was like, it would be nice to get some bling. And me and my friends have been talking about, ring season. So I was like, why not? Why not shoot for the stars? You might not think, a number 8 team in the league is going to win a ring. But I think the NSIC, it's anyone's game, whoever shows up and works harder. So why not have a goal like that? I know we didn't start off great, but I mean, it doesn't get in the way of our ring season.
Right.
So yeah, we actually, our first day of preseason, me and some other seniors got a big bag of ring pops and wrote notes on those and said, ring season, let's go, just to get everyone in the mindset. And we gave one to all the other fall coaches as well, just to kind of build like a little sense of community, let them know that we're supporting them too. Yeah, we brought it to other sports. Hopefully they're sharing the same goal as well. We want to see all of our teams win. So.
Very cool. It's why not have the goal? I mean, especially I'm going to ask too. I mean, you're the captain, right? I mean, you've been a leader, I'm sure, in different ways already, but why not be ambitious as a leader to say because also, to a certain extent, I'm sure the way people think about like sports psychology and mental processing and kind of visioning, if you don't ever say that, that you believe it, probably coaches, you're not going to do it, right? You're not going to see the path forward. So, yeah, good on you. I love the swagger. Watch out. And also, I mean, if you looked at last year's NSIC tournament, I mean, there were upsets abound. Like Mary made it to the final. Concordia upsetting Minnesota State, right? So, I mean, there were anything can happen. It just you have to get it together at the right time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So asking about, I mean, so your role as a captain, clearly one is to hype up, but I wonder, how do you think of your role as a captain? What do you think your job is? And not just like as a captain, but on this team, what they need from you. How do you think through that? Like you said, talking with the coach ahead of the season, and then who are some other seniors? Like, it's Baumlack Haugen is one of the other standouts who's playing a bit more defensively than you do, but talk about other people who are going to be a part of maybe helping you lead the squad this year.
Yeah, for sure. So with me, we have a little leadership task force group, we like to call it. So it's the other seniors. So that's, like you said, Baumlock Haugen, Tori Thorson, she's a 5th year, Morgan Eckerly, she's a senior. She has a redshirt year, so technically redshirt junior. And then Aisley Allen, she's a 5th year. She actually transferred from Idaho State. So she's kind of joining us in that leadership as well. So it is kind of a collective thing. I guess I got the title of the captain, but I think all of us are there as leaders. And I think everyone looks at us as leaders. But yeah, with this team specifically and just preparation and everything, we have, like I said, a lot of new players, a lot of freshmen, some transfers. So I guess one thing that me and my coach and the other seniors really talked about was we need to build that relationship not only on the field but off the field. You play better when you're confident in yourself and in each other. So we spent a lot of time over the summer. We had senior leadership groups where we met just via FaceTime every other week to check in, see if anyone has questions, get the freshmen comfortable, the other transfers comfortable. So yeah, that was a main focus, is just, getting that chemistry, blending the team a little bit with as many new players as we have. I think it's the most we've had in a long time. So as a leader on the team, it's really important to just keep that dynamic, the positivity. And I think so far it's been really good. Day one, right off the bat, the energy, enthusiasm, even during the fitness test, that was terrible. Everyone was so positive. And then since, I think everyone's been so great. And I think this is one of the closest teams we've had in a while. So it's really exciting to see.
How are you with the fitness test, Anna?
Yeah, it was better than I thought it'd go. I was able to get the highest level, so that was good. I was expecting that. My main goal, so our assistant coach, Sydney Burrell, she said that over the summer she ran it and got 12.2. So my main goal was to run it and beat 12.2.
Well, you got to beat the coach, Anna. Come on. I mean, yeah.
And so I got to 12.9, and yeah, I maybe thought I was going to puke afterwards, but I was proud. And then we went on to have 4 or 5 hours more of soccer practice after that. But I was happy with how it went, and I think the team overall did really well. So
where are you in the rank of fastest players on the Bulldogs?
We have a lot of speed. Morgan Eckerly has a lot of speed on the outside. Jess as well. I think I'd like to say I'm top 3, top 4.
Mhm.
Who else is really fast? She's fast. We just have a lot of fast players.
Mhm.
Baumlock's fast in the back there.
Mhm.
It would be interesting if we did like a race and just see who wins, who gets that
Well, the
title.
beep test, it'd be like the beep test, and then I mean, probably just a full field sprint, and then I mean, also people would probably want to know who's the fastest for like 15 yard or what, but
Yeah. There is different types of fast. I guess beep test is a lot of endurance, and then there's like the short sprints, the long sprints.
Mhm.
We got people in every area to cover
Right.
those, but I'd like to think I'm top 5.
All right, right on. Hey, I saw the one running behind to score last year, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, focus now fully on NSIC. You got Northern State coming up this weekend, Sunday at 1 p.m. And like we tell people all the time, it's really easy to watch these games. You can rewind it. You can have a separate window on the side. Like it's just a very usable platform. So super easy to pop in and just like see what's going on. If you're ever like just curious what games are going on, you can go to the NSIC website, and there's on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a lot of the time something's going on. But so planning for Northern State, one, I wanted to ask you this. I mean, what is the worst road trip? Because that's one of the longest ones. It's over 6 hours, right?
Yeah, that one's 6 hours, but surprisingly, it's not the longest. We have Wayne, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Which I think that might be tied with Minot. I think it's close to 8 hours. I never really know because I'm like,
well, it's once you get over 4 or 5.
Yeah. I just go where the bus takes me. Don't really even know what time it is. I'm like, we'll show up. But yeah, Aberdeen, I don't know. I have lots of family from Aberdeen in South Dakota. So
interesting.
To me is a little more interesting because I see all the towns, the small towns I recognize.
Yeah.
But then when I go to Wayne, I'm like, where am I? I look at a map, I'm just right in the center of the country. Same with Minot. They're far, but at least Bismarck is close to play both those teams. But it's fun. I don't hate road trips because it's just you and all your teammates hanging out. So
what do you do on the bus when it's like that long?
When it's that long, I feel like it goes in phases. So right off the bat, it's like an hour of people chatting. And then maybe after an hour, people try and sleep, maybe do some homework. And then after that, it's like people chat again. It's like every other hour. It's like we're playing games, but then we have to lock in homework, and then we're chatting again. So I think it kind of goes in waves, but I don't know. I don't typically sleep on moving vehicles, so I just listen to music, do my homework if I have any, read my book, annoy my teammates. That sort of stuff.
It's tough if you can't sleep at all. There were some players I really got a kick out of talking about their strategy of how they sleep. They use things that people get for dogs to like get between the seat and I never heard of it in the way they were describing it. I was like, a dog backpack? What? Yep. I didn't know. So, but hey, you got to find your way when you have a 9-hour trip.
Yeah, some people sleep on the floor in the middle of the aisle. So like, if you go to the bathroom, you have to like climb and hop and
Don't want the injuries,
Yeah.
But yeah, thinking about, so starting in the NSIC, like you alluded to with non-conference games, it's great to be tested. Really, all that matters is the bulk of your season is the conference. You have to get in the tournament and then do your work in the tournament. So really, this is what matters. It's nice to have the test earlier. But so when talking about, you said ring season, do the coaches come to you with also like their sense of goals? Because I'm sure, like they listen to you, but also I'm sure Coach Kane has his own. How specific are they in saying this is the goal for the team this year? Is it making the tournament and go from there, or is it more granular than that?
Yeah, so a lot of it is on us. I know Greg is like, I'm going to lead you as much as I can, but if it's not in you guys wanting it yourselves, we're not going to get very far. So a lot of it is on us, what we want, where we think we can make it to. And then we kind of share those goals with him, and then he'll change what he says to kind of match those goals. So like before a game, he'll say, this is what we have to do in order to achieve these goals that you told us that you want. So a lot of it is driven by us. He wants to hear what we want and what we think we can do. But yeah, so yeah, I guess when it comes to that, they let us take the lead in a lot of it.
Right. That's pretty cool. So is he someone you describe like he's a player's coach? Is that what you'd say? Like he sounds like, the leadership council is something that's really common. I think it's really cool. Definitely that didn't exist, in youth sports. I never got to some high level of sports, but I think that is kind of new that it's formally empowering players and also not just one senior or two seniors. So I don't think that's super rare, but the way you're talking about, collective goal setting is interesting. How would you describe, Greg's been the coach for 3 decades, not to age you, Greg, but it's a high compliment. You're the longest running D2 coach, the first ever in Minnesota, I believe, through a couple conferences, overall a winning coach. But there were also some tougher years just before you got here. That was kind of one of the downturns. And now on this come up. So I'm sure part of it is him being able to keep a staff and keep himself engaged in a way to regrow a squad into winning. How do you assess like their job in the time you've been there, building the Bulldogs back into the tournament?
Yeah. So it's funny you say that. So yeah, we did struggle early on. It was my freshman year. That was probably our toughest year. As a freshman, there's not always a lot I can do. But it was hard at first coming into that. And then I know each year that I've been here, luckily enough, the team's been able to increase how far we've made it. So sophomore year was better. Last year was the best so far, making it to the tournament. And I guess it kind of, Greg will reiterate, like we made it here last year. Let's try and make it even further. But yeah, when it comes to the coaching staff, so Kelly Gerges Wheeler, she's been, she was the assistant before Sydney Burrell. She had been there for a very long time. I was lucky to have her for 2 years. But yeah, and then we had that coaching staff change with Sydney coming in last year, and then also adding a goalie coach, Ginger, and then Aaron this year. So we've had some new coaches, which I think, brings in some good new ideas, new energy. They're also pretty young, so they have some of maybe those fresher, younger ideas. I think it kind of like balances out Greg's like long knowledge of the game with some new fresh ideas. And I think it really helps to have both sides of that.
Yeah, I would guess that helps Greg as well. Yeah, like also he can empower them to be like, I want you to get a chance to do this and get another job, because he knows he's where he wants to be. And also like that helps you stay in the job if you don't have to be grinding so hard, because I know he does other coaching too. And yeah,
he does it all.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I was going to ask you too, because there are relatively newer coaches. One of them is Aaron Blanchard, right? Who was your coach this summer in UPSL. I don't know why I had this thought. Did you get asked? Did they ask? Was it decided before UPSL started, or did he ask the players who then like had familiarity with them? Well, just for insight, not like is it okay? Obviously.
Well, I didn't know really that they were thinking about bringing him on until very close to when he actually did join the staff. I remember before the summer season started, I'd met with Greg and he was talking about, oh, Aaron Blanchard's the coach. He's a really great guy, really great coach, all that. And I was like, cool. And I remember I met with them another time in the summer, and Greg they were asking like, oh, how's the coach? How are you liking it? And I was like, great, all that. And I didn't even think about, maybe they're asking because they're planning on bringing him to the staff. So I really had no idea up until it was pretty much officially announced. So it was super cool. It was a nice transition for me to be able to get some experience before the coach before they technically join the staff. So
yeah. And for people who don't know, Aaron Blanchard, we in Alaska a bit more about the Superior City FC team that we covered in the summer. But Aaron Blanchard was the coach of them in terms of his regular or most regular gig. He had been a coach at Northland, and Northland's going through not just sporting, but kind of whole institutional struggles, which is a bummer to see. Nice to see someone like Aaron bounce into a program in the area, someone who had UWS connections. So something unique to the Twin Ports, how much there is like a tight-knit community there. But yeah, so talk about last year for people who don't know, we kind of touched on it, but so, and for people to have a context of overall, I think Greg Kane's 30 years has been like a winning percentage of 58% or something. In the 90s, they won a bunch. They won some more titles in the early 2000s. But in the last couple years, it was, so in 2021, you got 12th in the NSIC, which positioning can be granular because it might have been close in points, but still it was a tough year. 9th the year previous to last. So that was where you missed out on the playoffs by like a game on a point on the last day. So you were right there. And then last year getting to 8th in the NSIC, having some solid results. So this is a team that's on the come up. And I wonder for you, like when you look back, what were your favorite wins last year?
Yeah. That's a hard one. So, well, let me think here. We had, so with the new rule about how ties are now allowed, there were a lot of ties, and that's why I think the points were super close.
Yeah.
Let me think. I know we beat Northern State early on. It was a non-conference game. Unfortunately, we tied them in the actual NSIC game.
Yeah.
I always love playing Northern State.
Okay.
They're great competition. Let's see.
I mean, you beat Northern State. I mean, you had Crookston win. There were a lot of ties. I mean, but you beat Southwest Minnesota. You kind of won the games you had to win. And then, I mean, it's hard to pick which one stands out the most. I mean, this is also the one maybe I wanted to know most is what were the losses? This maybe is the same question. I was going to ask who you most want to beat this year, which maybe correlates a little bit to maybe which were the hardest losses last year to take.
Yeah.
Too. I don't know.
So, that hardest loss might be an easier question. So it was our very last game. This one probably doesn't come as a surprise. St. Cloud lost 1-0. It was our first round of the NSIC tournament, which we hadn't been to in a few years. Super close game. It was anyone's game. I think they scored off of a corner early on in the first half, and we hit a couple posts in the second half. We had our opportunities, couldn't put them away, and just making it that far and then not being able to get that final result was a little heartbreaking. But yeah, so that one was definitely hard. Mankato was tough given that, the year prior we tied them, and then going into this game, I think we lost by a few goals. That one was tough because we had, some excitement coming into it, given the last time we had faced them. But yeah, and I guess to answer your question, who am I most looking forward to play and who do I want to beat? Probably St. Cloud. And I think everyone wants to kind of beat St. Cloud right now. They've been doing very well. Right. But to us, ever since my freshman year, they have been our travel partner, our closest competition. We played them so many times. We played them in the spring first scrimmage, non-conference, in conference, in the tournament. So I think that's the team we've seen the most, at least in my career here. And I don't think we've gotten a win out of any of our matchups. So it would be really good to finally last attempt get a win. And like I said, they've been doing well. They moved to the top of the conference very quickly. So I think they have a target on their backs from a lot of teams. So yeah, that would be a team I'm excited to play and hopefully can get a result.
Greta and Jade, I'm writing on the bulletin board right now. Now it's Anna's time to be the bulletin board material. I love it. I can't wait for that matchup. But yeah, I mean, to play them and have be that close. This is, I mean, if you wanted positive spins on how the year ends in terms of motivating you next year, UMD is going for, hopefully you don't need another year like the last two where getting ninth, missing the conference tournament by a point, losing 1-0 so close to the team that had won the tournament. I mean, so yeah, it's easy for you guys to believe you're right there and there's a step up. I did want to ask about Superior City. Like I said, for people who don't know, I'm guessing anyone watching this kind of does know, but not everybody. But they're a UPSL team, which is one of the summer leagues, a newer a league for Minnesota in their second year. And I should say Minnesota and surrounding states because Superior City plays in Wisconsin, obviously. But it's a team that was hyper local to the Twin Ports and its area, only going as far as like Two Harbors or Cloquet. And like for people who are familiar with the area or ESCO, maybe Ashland. And so they're a team that immediately competed though with that talent against people from the Twin Cities. You joined them this year. Now there's some time away. I talked to you after a really tough loss too. Yeah. Now you can reflect on the season because it was overall, I think, a positive thing for you. What did you take away from playing with Superior City this summer?
Yeah. So I think it was one of my most developmental summers when it comes to my soccer skills and all that. And I think it's a great league. We played a lot of players that are in the NSIC and other really strong college divisions or leagues as well. But yeah, I guess my takeaway was we we're a grind of a team. I think, not everyone thought we would make it as far as we did. And so when we did, and I think our last game was close-ish against Aurora. We started off pretty strong. We thought we were in it, and we were close for a while. They ended up pulling away at the end, but I don't think anyone thought we would, be able to face Aurora's team again after the first time we saw them. So yeah, I think Aaron Blanchard, he did a great job leading this team. Obviously he was a new coach to the team. We had a lot of new players, a lot of Superior girls, a lot of UMD girls. So it was fun to kind of see those two local schools mesh. But yeah, overall it was a great way to get prepared for this season.
I wonder how much you had like micro trash talk from teammates who like used to play in Duluth and Cloquet, and like, you're like, I don't know, man, I was in Lakeville, I don't know what these little high school rivalries are.
It is crazy how many, like pretty much everyone was from this Twin Ports area besides me. And Morgan Eckerly, my teammate, she's also from the cities, and there might have been a couple more, but other than that, it was this local Duluth team, and I'm like, sorry, I'm just a cities girl here.
You got some Duluth teammates, but it's like not the you have more teammates from Lakeville probably than Duluth. There's a bunch of Lakeville girls on your squad.
This year especially, but.
Everywhere. But and then I mean, in terms of UPSL for you, because I think, I mean, like you said, it was your most developmental summer. It's exciting for us. The more and more we talk to players at any level that we're talking to, they just tell us, they hope to play pro soccer. Not everyone wants to, but how did playing in the UPSL against some of these players affect, kind of like you said, it affect your game, but then also your broader vision of the game, like your place in the game?
Yeah. So, it was a great league. We played a whole diverse group of players. So there was one team, Twin Stars specifically, they had some older players and some who played pro overseas. They were phenomenal. When we heard that we were playing some older players, we were like, okay, we should be able to get them, outrun them, muscle them, whatever. But no, they gave us a game, and I'm sure we lost by a good amount. So and then we'd play, a team that has mostly high schoolers. So there's a big range, but still every single team brought us great competition, which showed me maybe different types of soccer, whether it's you just got to out physically play them, or you got to out think them, you got to out technical skill them. So it was all sorts of different types of soccer, which I think was great to just kind of round me out as a player.
I think it's beneficial to see that we're in this boom time of summer teams and summer leagues as people try to get into the women's game, which is cool. And of course, sometime it'll level out in terms of how many teams we can actually have, but there's more and more every year. One of the things that was cool about UPSL is there are different types. Like you said, like Aurora 2 they also had some players who I think had played fringe pro or were now about to, I interviewed a couple of players who were, in their later 20s, which made me, I thought that was really cool. Almost like an underdog story. And then of course you have a bunch of you have college kids mixing together, and then you have teams that have a lot of academy age players. So nice that players can find their place to where it works for them. But where was I will say this too, in terms of a reference for people, we'll talk a little bit about D1 people more next week, but Matt and I will talk about it. I was watching a game that Anna was playing against NOSC Blast, which by the way, they could have won. There was some referee drama. It was a wild game, but they were a very talented squad, but still Superior City found a way to almost get back into it. And the forward for NOSC, I was like, God, she's really good. Who is that? And it's Barrett Parton, and she's scored 5 goals for Iowa already this year. So you face levels. You have high schoolers from ESCO. Shout out to the high schoolers competing with D1 recruits. But now I just want to do a couple other things. I want to ask you a couple questions about Duluth, and then just a couple other soccer related ones, and we'll roll you out. Appreciate the time. Do you have a favorite soccer player?
Yeah, I go back and forth between Mallory Pugh and Mallory Swanson now, and Sophia Smith.
Okay.
Trinity Rodman, even. I think those three are everyone's favorites right now. But I mean, for me as a forward too, I like to watch before my games here. I'll pull up Mallory Swanson highlights, and I'll just watch and visualize, and so I do a lot of switching off between those three.
Yeah, it's a sweet new generation of forwards. Like watching them in the Olympic, like it's just like, all right, because we keep players around on the team who are really old, and you're like, wow, we have a lot of players who are 35. All of a sudden, the forwards are all 20. Swanson isn't a kid, but still, yeah, that's cool. What's your favorite place to eat in Duluth? It could be Superior too, but you could list a couple if you need to.
Okay, yeah. So my go-to is sushi.
Okay.
So I like to rotate between. There's 3 different places. Cloud9 is good.
Yeah.
Wasabi, I'd say I'd go there the most. Right now, I think Hanabi might be my favorite there.
Okay.
But if you want all you can eat sushi, go to Wasabi or Cloud9. Those are my favorites. So
recruits, there's still sushi in Duluth. This is
don't worry.
There was a while where one of the restaurants up there, I think it was Corktown Deli, was getting oysters daily. And I think it probably didn't work out economically for them. But while they were doing that, I know maybe you shouldn't buy oysters in Minnesota, but guess what? They were saying they were coming every day, and I was a fan. Yeah.
Interesting. I do like Corktown.
What's your favorite outdoor spot in Duluth to go?
Probably just, so we call it the Rocks. It's not Park Point Beach. It's like the other side of the lake where it's super rocky cliffs, and you can kind of jump in the water there. It's super clean. We just drive down towards the interstate, and we find to park across the interstate, and then we walk through the woods a little bit, and then rocks everywhere. You can tan, you can swim. It's awesome. It's fun.
Yeah, right on. Everyone's got to find I used to live kind of east of downtown, and I would go to the lake and like swim like kind of up like 2 miles up from downtown, because then no one was there, and then people on the train would be like, what the hell is that guy doing swimming? But what's your favorite place to play a game? I mean, other than we know you have a great home. Is it Molosky? Stadium? Yeah. So honestly, it is a really good, very nice stadium. But what's your favorite place you've gotten to, either for a road trip or like for the stadium of it?
Yeah. Well, so Wayne is probably one of my least favorite travel places because it's so far. But once you get there, their field is great. I really like playing on that field. I prefer turf over grass. So sorry, like Cato, Augustana, they have grass. It's not my favorite.
Right. Well, when you're used to it, the vast majority are on turf, right? So it's kind of it is tough to when you're not playing half and half either. It's like really right, like at least 3/4.
Yeah,
like
I think majority would be
turf. Only a few teams. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, if not Wayne, then definitely just Concordia, St. Paul, just because my family's there, a lot of friends. We can get a pretty good turnout of fans, so that one's always fun too.
Right on. Also going to Marquette is sweet. Marquette, Michigan is a sweet, like it's just like a little Duluth. That's I love going there.
Yeah.
What about, okay, so we talked about where you eat sushi. I mean, maybe this is the motivation. What local business can we try to spark an NIL partnership for you with, Anna? Who would, it could be that it is money, but also it's like, well, I got free sushi.
Yeah. That's a good question. I would say Wasabi. I actually did a school project on them. We had to make like a marketing plan. So either there or Juice Farm. They have smoothies and all that, super natural.
Where's Juice Farm at?
It's downtown, I think, on like near First Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's small. I didn't used to know it existed, but once I found it, I was like, oh wait, this place is pretty good. Smoothie bowls, smoothies, all that sort of stuff.
Well, and speaking of which, because the last question, I mean, businesses, Anna, this is something Anna has instinct and training for. You want to do marketing, right?
Yeah, marketing or sales. I think I'm leaning more towards sales right now.
Marketing or sales. This is someone who knows how to help you make sales. Yeah. Very cool. Well, Anna, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really excited for the NSIC stuff to kick off because it makes it easy for us. I definitely am looking for all the games we can try and get close by at Concordia here, so that they don't have a home game for a few weeks. But that'll make it easier for us to get a few of those in. Thank you so much, Anna. Do you want to share any way for people to engage with you or like follow you throughout the season, social media or otherwise?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram at UMD Soccer. We'll post, where you can watch our live streams, game day reminders, all that sort of thing. And we're also growing our TikTok. That's also UMD Soccer. Feel free to follow us there. We'll be posting some more fun content.
Talk about time on the bus. I get why college athletes, D2 college athletes would use TikTok because nothing but time and there's no room to dance horizontally on the bus. You got it. All you can do is vertical. Thank you so much, Anna. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye. All right. We don't have a TikTok, do we, Matt?
I did camp on the handle, so we at least have the
good.
handle.
Okay, nice. So yeah, anyone who's got, a daughter who would get full credit, daughter, son, child, anyone, could be an adult. I would rather have it be a younger person, knowing what TikTok is. But anyone wants to get into the Equal Time TikTok, talk to Matt. We'll have a conversation.
Great conversation with Anna. During that conversation, I was looking up the UMD roster, and I don't know if you noticed this, Mark, but we have a sister connection across the NSIC. A freshman defender for Duluth, Juliana Zerna. Her older sister is the starting center back for St. Cloud. So a fun. Might need to consider a sister show.
What jersey will the parents wear? We'll see.
Maybe they'll do one of those where they literally make the half. We have seen
Rondé Barber situation. Matt, do you want to give some credit to our sponsors here before we kick off into D1 talk?
Yeah, shout out to Pentz Homes. As you all know, our coverage is brought to you by Pentz Homes, a long time supporter of Equal Time Soccer. Nate Pentz and Lydia Kelpie have helped me buy the house I'm sitting in right now. I'm in a Pentz home. They're a huge supporter of local soccer in Minnesota, and so it really is helpful to try and support them and spread the word. They can help you find, if you're buying, selling, remodeling, even if you're in a different state, if somehow a UMD parent is from a different spot, they can actually get a referral for a realtor they know in their network. And we just really trust them. I mean, I've sold 2 houses with them. I've bought 2 houses with them. Like, they've been the absolute best for us. And so huge shout out to Nate and Lydia. They have a great preferred lender that I've worked with who answered a lot of questions. I had a lot of dumb questions. So shout out to Pentz Homes, pentzhomes.com. Go check them out. And then
Lydia's a great follow on Twitter. Nate's the biggest Lynx fan I know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And shout out to all of our patrons, patreon.com/equaltimesoccer. You see it on the scroller. Even like a few bucks really helps us out. That's why we can do road coverage, on the ground coverage, and also just do so many of these shows. So shout out to everyone for supporting us there. You see Mark's shirt in the background. If you like that Equal Time shirt, I Watch Women's Soccer is on the back. Equal Time is on the front. Mark has those at Blackheart, so go get one. We got extras.
Show up and check the sizes. We'll probably order some more this winter at least. But yeah, check it out. Matt, let's dig in. Gophers. I got to go to a Gopher game this weekend, which was nice. We were off from European soccer, so I was free from bar duties. It was very fun to get to go watch. Honestly, I think maybe I only know of it because we had a Minnesotan on it, but Brown, one of the most solid teams the last 4 years, right? Yeah. They won the Ivy 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
They're solid. They're in the tournament a lot. Claire Gagne, you might recognize the Brown soccer program because last year Claire Gagne was bossing them in goal a couple years before as well. Now starting from North Carolina, just to say one of the tougher non-conference opponents they had, kind of a sneaky trap game. They might even they're probably ranked higher in RPI than the Gophers.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, Brown historically, I think last year they were somewhere around 40 and the Gophers are maybe around like 87 or something like that. So, Brown and frankly those top Ivies are RPI monsters because top strength of schedule just leads to more strength of schedule. And so because the Ivy has been so strong the last few years, all of those Ivies, it's a multi-bid league, Brown is
wild.
Yeah. I couldn't believe how much they dictated the run of play in that game. I mean, I'd never watched them in person and, it ended in a 1-1 tie. I think Mark already said, the first goal came super late in the game. Minnesota scored on, a corner that Brown attempted to clear. It ended up going in. And then Brown's goal was kind of equally own goalie. I think Cordoza ended up getting credit for the goal, but
I think it was a bounce around. It was
very, very own goal vibes. And so two scrappy goals for a really hard fought game. Brown just pressed like crazy. They did it really well. They did it as a unit. They did it even when they went deep into their bench. Yeah. I made sure to find head coach Kia McNeil after the game and just shake her hand because she's been someone that Minnesota parents mention all the time. Minnesota coaches mention all the time. She's a 3-time Ivy League coach of the year. She's been there 9 years, a really well-respected coach in the space. And you could see why. It was just a really hard game. And to be honest with you, a point in that game, I think, head coach Erin Chastain told us after the game, she thought that, a draw is a fairly fair result considering how well Brown did early on and how long it took for the Gophers to adjust. But, Minnesota keeps going and they have yet to get a loss, which is huge because in RPI, actually ties are even more meaningful than they are in standing points. And so,
sure. Yeah.
So like in the standings, a tie is worth 1 point versus 3 for a win, but in RPI, it's worth 1 point versus 2. And so the ratio isn't as dramatic from a win to a tie.
Shows what I know. That's interesting.
So that's why those RPI, those ties to high quality teams can be, I mean, you don't want to give up a win, but those ties can still be pretty valuable.
Interesting. But yeah, it was a tough game to watch at times, just because I think, like you said, Brown made it very difficult to have rhythm established for the Gopher squad. And then I think there were just some moments where, you saw opportunities and the Gophers just happened to make the wrong choice on offense.
Yeah.
Like, didn't see that there were 2 players wide and tried to shoot, but honestly, I mean, you sometimes need those games, right? You don't want to go into Big Ten play just where you feel like you didn't take any hard lessons. I mean, not like, so to do it with the draw definitely could have been a loss on another day. So the goals were all were both gunky, and then it was right at the end the Gophers had one final chance, and it did. One player kind of got a touch, and it was just wide. So very dramatic ending. But talk about people like, I mean, Kaya Harper coming into her own. She was killing it in the summer, just like she did last summer for Salvo. Now she's producing in a way you have not seen in terms of national prominence. Talk about her, and then maybe anyone else you want to mention of like just output for this Gopher team.
Yeah. So, I mentioned in the preseason preview, I said, we need to get, if the Gophers are going to way outperform their 14th place pick in the Big Ten coaches poll, they need to have their forward line, producing something like 15 goals. I just threw out a number because, to be honest with you, the leading goal scorer the past several years has been at 6 goals per season, and most of the time it's been a midfielder.
Wasn't it Sophia Bowman last year?
Romine was 6 last year, and
Bowman
so it's
had 5 or something.
Yeah, it's been a midfielder half the time, and so Kaya Harper's already beyond that now. She's at 8 goals, 3 assists. She's towards the top in points per game. Both we're continuing our Minnesota mania where Izzy Engel, Kaya Harper, and Caitlin McBean are 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in goals in D1 in the entire country, and that doesn't even count Barrett Parton, who, if her 2 phantom goals counted, she would be only a goal behind the next spot.
Wow!
And so
it's the 4 horsewomen of the soccer flips.
Exactly that. I was just going to say that. So huge output from Kaya Harper, which is not hard to see based on the points, but also just in general, I think you need to shout out someone like Evelyn Calhoun, who actually got to play against her former team in Brown. She came here as a grad transfer. She's already up to 4 assists. And she got pressed into, she was already going to play a serious role based on what we saw during the exhibition season. But then after the injury to Fiona Skorowski in the back line, Kate Childers shifts to center back. And so now Calhoun is starting alongside Bowman in sort of that double 6-ish. They both move forward, but kind of a double 6. Yeah. And she's just so smart, so technical, so good in space. And we mentioned already those 4 assists in just 6 games. And so, yeah, really, really productive. And then otherwise, there's a few different categories that I don't know if you would guess, and Mark can probably see them in the show notes, so I probably can't use it as a guessing point. But a few of the statistical markers for the Gophers that stood out to me. And people maybe think I over focus on this, but I think looking at foul count is actually really helpful to try and preview how a team plays. Because when you see a high foul team, a lot of the times that can signal sort of how much they actually want to play soccer or not. And for instance, the Gophers are last in the Big Ten in fouls, which I think is representative of how they're trying to play this year. They are trying to defend, they are trying to be physical, but they are not doing that sort of physicality for physicality's sake. They are trying to sort of quote unquote play the right way. Another big marker I would put out there that I do think is a signal for how they've been playing, they're 3rd in shot on target percentage. And I only say that sticks out because they have been finishing a lot better. And I think the shots on target being there is part of why they are scoring more goals. They're not just getting up shots. They're not anywhere near the top in terms of getting up shots. It's just the shots they're taking are on target. And so I think that's really valuable. And then one familiar data point for longtime Gopher fans, they are 5th in corners, so the top 3rd in the conference in corners. The difference is they're actually converting them this year. So similar to that year where Gabby Cesaroni was around, they are actually finding ways to convert. Kaya Harper scored on one. Bowman scored on one. And so that actually is has been, I think, representative of sort of a dangerous piece for them. And then the last thing I would say is right now they're 7th in goal differential. And, non-conference is very different than conference play, particularly in the Big Ten. But I would just note they were picked 14th. Right now they're 7th in goal differential. I think 7th or 6th. I said this in our first preview show. That is a good, ambitious mark for them to aim for. Like, we have heard that there is a 10-team Big Ten tournament this year. That means the top 6 get buys. I think hitting that 6th place threshold is a really good and still ambitious goal for them. And right now they're at least vaguely on pace to be within distance of that. So yeah, they've been super fun. They go to Illinois on Thursday. Then they come, there's a weird quirk in the Big Ten schedule this year where there's actually a hybrid weekend. So almost every Big Ten team does a thing where they play Big Ten on Thursday and then play non-conference again on Sunday. Yeah. So they come home on Sunday to play NDSU. I'll be broadcasting that one. Yeah. And of course, just a mountain of Minnesotans on that Bison roster. Those stands on Sunday will be absolutely packed.
It's going to be a lot of green, and there's going to be a lot of green and shared gold. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, fun. I mean, that's a big get for NDSU. Honestly, could be even good just to get some recruits. So they could have recruits from the cities come. I mean, but yeah, for all their families. Also, I mean, that's when the Gophers expect to get another one. I mean, what you'd expect them to beat Illinois, Matt?
So there's sort of this band of Big Ten teams that are within the range where Minnesota got picked, where it's Illinois, it's Michigan, it's programs like that, where maybe even Northwestern, where none of these games are going to be easy for Minnesota. None of them, where Minnesota is in the standings and where the Big Ten is with so much parity, you're not going to have any gimmies in conference play, but the most winnable, like the closest to like winnable, gettable games for a team like Minnesota will be Illinois, will be Michigan, will be Northwestern. And those games are still going to be really hard, but those will be the ones that are sort of really need to win. Sort of, you can't, the ones where you really need to get that win instead of the tie, because you're not going to be able to get points. You can't count on getting 6 points going out to LA, so the Illinois is one of those games where if they have ambition, they really need to be winning a game like that. So it'll be a really good test on Thursday.
So Matt's saying the betting line is bet for Minnesota to win and for Kaya to score. That's just plus something. Yeah. For when we start our betting book.
Can you tell we don't have a betting sponsor?
I'm playing it down. I gamble sports gambling all the time. Let's talk a little St. Thomas. But yeah, fun game for people to go in on that Sunday. For the Elizabeth Lyle Robbie, one of the best places to watch a game. It'll be packed. But yeah, let's talk about St. Thomas. They're coming into approaching Summit League play. Talk about what you've seen in terms of trends for how they're performing with kind of stat trends like you saw for the Gophers.
Yeah, St. Thomas is roughly in line with maybe where they were predicted in the Summit League. They're about 7th in goal differential as well, but out of 9 teams. I think to this point, you're still seeing some learning and growing out of the Toms. I think one thing that happened this year is they did pivot a little bit in how they're using their formation and their shape. They're kind of playing what head coach Sheila McGill has described as like a mid-block. And so if folks watch the Gophers play Army, what Army did is like positioning wise is similar to what St. Thomas is trying to do, which is they're not going to charge forward and force you out of your own box, but they're also not going to sit all the way back in their own half. They're going to sit about 3/4 of the way up with their forward line. They're going to count on getting some traps in that space, but mostly they want to possess. They want the run of play to be in the middle and then into the front half. So they have had, they're second in offsides in the Summit League. I think that is pretty representative because when St. Thomas doesn't have an offense going, they really do just try and find Maria Wynn, find Lexi Huber, find some runners. And so those attempts over the top are always going to come, particularly because Lissa Mizutani has been starting at right back. She has a great long ball. Abby Brantner has a really great long ball from left back. And so I think you are going to see a lot of those offside calls, and I don't hate stuff like that. They're just going for an easy opportunity. I think it is interesting also to see them third in fouls, because sort of a marker for St. Thomas in the D1 era, and for all I know during the Mayak era, I'm not going to promise to know, they tend to be a high foul, low yellow card team. And I say that as kind of a compliment. Like, they do foul and there is scrappiness. If you've watched Mariah win, you know St. Thomas is going to foul. But they aren't doing sort of egregious, mean for tackles' sake, big-time fouls. So I think you're seeing that part of their identity has stuck around in terms of that high intensity scrappiness of some of those sort of big time athletes. And then just some individual shout outs. Have to give a shout out. Lexi Huber currently leading the Summit League in goals, which is no small feat. There's a lot of great goal scorers and a lot of good offenses. She has 5 goals on the year, 3 game winning goals already. So huge shout out to Lexi Huber. Folks on Equal Time have seen her on here forever. And then a funky Summit League thing. I don't know if this jumps up to you, Mark, but when you look at team stats for goalkeeping versus individual, the rankings look very different because 2 different teams in the Summit League are doing a keeper split. So SDSU has been doing it for a couple seasons, and now Omaha is also doing it. And so as teams, they actually outrank St. Thomas in certain ones, but as an individual keeper, Olivia Rowe, who's big, strong, athletic in the back for St. Thomas, actually 3rd in saves per game. And so she's been really busy back there and doing a solid job. So yeah, St. Thomas this week gets to face off against former Summit League foe Western Illinois at 4 p.m. on Friday. That's actually a really sort of fun day and time to go out and watch a game at Southfield. If folks want to go hang out in the parking ramp with me and Bobby Rintoul, we'll be up there ripping it
out. There's a bunch of people last game. I feel like there's a bunch of families because you can park your car. It's a nice view.
They did. Well, a bunch of people did sort of the pregame tailgate up there. And then a lot of those parents then went back down to the stands. But honestly, it's a really great view for the field too. So 4 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah. And then they have, that's the only game for them this weekend. Next week it's at Marquette. Tough game. That'd be, if they can get anything out of that, that'd be great for them. And then really Summit League starts, it's in a couple weeks. We'll have more shows by then, but they started off with South Dakota and Oral Roberts. So not a bad way to start, at least, but then they have the next weekend is South Dakota State and Denver. So yeah, hopefully they get some wins here because you wouldn't expect the betting line, as I'm going to learn, probably would be tough against Denver and South Dakota State.
Yeah. Well, and essentially if you're a bottom 3rd Summit League team, just every single game is super hard. So we didn't talk about their previous games much, or I didn't talk about them specifically, but their result at Northern Iowa is a great example of the challenge they face game in and game out. So UNI is on the up. They've been more dangerous year after year. They have multiple Minnesotans. We track them as much as we can. And it is like when St. Thomas started in the D1 era, that used to be sort of like a much more gettable game. And this year, St. Thomas did do pretty well. They battled, they lost 2-3, so it was within grasp. But that's the type of game where it's just like any simple mistake a St. Thomas defender made, led to a goal, and you're just playing a team that's going to pounce on you. And so that's a really good example of what it's like to play a top half Summit League team, is going up against like a Northern Iowa. And it's just, it's always going to be a challenge.
Something I learned, I watched that game too, and it was good to watch. I mean, like you said, solid result to fight the way they did. But yeah, you and I had stuff going together. One I learned also from one of the players we mention a lot, because I read and type names constantly, but I don't hear them all the time. So I was saying Olivia Nopal, and the announcer said Canopoli. And so it's so different. I don't know. I'm going to have to get a...
Guess what? Parents, get in our mentions.
I can go to the pronunciation guide, but I was like, well, that's the opposite of what I was.
The same thing happened when the Gophers were playing Army, and I did my prep call with Tracy Chow, the head coach at Army, and I'd been saying Polidol for like 3 years. It's Polidol. And the sisters and the Polidol sisters for Army are ballers. And so we will keep correcting. And by the way, send us messages, correct us.
Hey, happy to try. Yeah, I'm always trying to do my best. We'll do some quick hits, Matt, just on some of the other Minnesotan stuff we've been tracking this fall. Namely, U20 Women's World Cup continues. The U.S. dispatched Paraguay 7-0 very comfortably. Maddie Darlene, again, a sub, but gets a goal again. So 2 goals in the opening groups. We'll see how that affects if she gets to start. They're playing Mexico. Love it. Round of 16, rings of 2002 for the men's senior team. The Mexican women are nothing to slouch at. Their senior team's on the come up. Their youth teams have been competitive, though, even longer, I would say. I didn't realize in terms of they have made to the quarterfinals in 2022, in 2016, in 12 and 10.
Yeah.
So consistently competitive. But obviously the U.S. expected to win. It's Wednesday 8 p.m.
Yeah, Wednesday, September 11th at 8 p.m. on Fox Sports. I will shout out here. I think at the senior team level, American fans are used to thinking of Canada as the prime rival, like for senior team competition.
Yeah.
We have to give a shout out. I think I've maybe talked about it on shows before. I don't remember. Folks, I don't think cover Liga MX much. Like, I don't think American soccer fans hear much about Liga MX Femenil too much. Liga MX, when the Mexican Federation started Liga MX Femenil, they made it not just focused on domestic talent. It started by being focused on youth development. And so it was started as like essentially a U23 league or something similar to that. Mm-hmm. And then what they did is they started allowing a few more older players. Now I think it's fully open. And they started
there's still rules about them being domestic though.
And there's domestic caps, but they used to have age caps and they loosened them a bit. But by starting that way, they've driven a ton of investment. They've basically leveraged these clubs to drive a ton of investment into the women's game. And that's why you see them doing so well. The U.S. fell to them in CONCACAF qualifying. Both teams in the final made the World Cup. That's why both teams are here. But they fell to them in the final, and they just are always tough in these youth ranks for them to battle.
Well, and they can always pull dual nationals from America too. That's the relationship with, the US for women. It's like, we're the Brazil. I mean, we have everyone tries to get a dual national, American. Mm-hmm. But so for context of where it goes from here, and by the way, the US have not won this since 2012. Mm-hmm. So that was a little surprise, in terms of all the dominance, all the trophies at the senior level, not so in this tournament. So, I mean, that would be a drought to end for certain. Mm-hmm. They will play the winner of Germany-Argentina on September 15th. And then the other four on their side of the bracket. Speaking of someone who I had even kind of forgotten about, I know they're relevant in the women's game more than the men's game, but North Korea, a powerhouse. Mm-hmm. They have won it, or they haven't won it, but they are a team that they won the Asian Cup a couple of years ago. I think they maybe did win one World Cup. They were the first Asian team to win a FIFA event in that case. And then this tournament, they beat Argentina 6-2, Costa Rica 9-0, Netherlands 2-0. So talk about a kind of a scary team to face, but the other teams on that side are Austria, Brazil, and Cameroon. So we'll keep watching, and Maddie Delene will probably keep scoring goals. We'll see. Matt, we got Minnesota, the first Minnesotan officially now recorded on the books for Zephyr, right? For minutes played.
If we're gonna depending on how we parse true, the most sort of roots in the ground Minnesotan, Jetty Vetter, who plays for Spokane, had a leg injury that kept her out of matches early on. Finally got in the 77th, 78th minute. Watched that back this morning. She had some nice runs, played out on that right wing for them. Got a few crosses in. One of them actually led to a nice ambitious side volley out of the air. And so, I think even when I, messaged her after just, being able to get the first game in and have the first, they were playing at Brooklyn. And so, being able to just get that first experience under her belt. So that's super, super cool. We'll be watching them more as we go. We'll try and post those to social as much as we can. All those games broadcast on Peacock. We won't always be able to clip highlights the same we do with other broadcasting platforms, but we'll still try to share everything we have for both Jenny for Spokane, and then Katie Duong continues to start for DC Power as well. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota is a Big Tent term. I mean, everyone's calling Tim Wells is from Nebraska, baby. He's Minnesotan. I'm just, it's like we aren't exclusive the way some other places are. Maybe, well, look, if you go up north, there might be some turfiness, but look, I knew a guy who moved to the Iron Range 60 years before I met him. They're like, you carpetbagger. I'm like, geez, she has grandkids here. Someone else though, but shout out to the range, love you Rangers, Cherry especially. But Morgan Stone got a deal signed. I don't think we talked about it on the show, but she did sign in Portugal with a team that I didn't try to look up the pronunciation of, but we'll do our best to be hyping that up too.
Yeah, Portugal has continued their run we mentioned earlier. I think maybe last show we mentioned that she was in Portugal, but now she finally announced the signing and the season getting underway. The other one Morgan Stone playing over in the Portuguese league. We mentioned that league has particularly been trying to hunt down Americans and overseas players. The other one I forgot to mention is Rashida Beal. I mentioned a few shows ago is playing at Gintra, a Champions League team that previously had former Gopher Athena Kuhn on it as well. And they dropped one of these early qualifying Champions League matches. It's really hard. It's essentially not televised or tracked, but eventually they dropped that qualifying match. So might mean that it's more likely that Beal is on the market in the winter, because I believe that was a Champions League season contract. So usually that's a fall signing.
Expand the Champions League. Champions League for women is 16 teams by the time you get to groups.
It's the weird thing where it's kind of 16 teams and it's kind of like 64. It's the thing where
you only get a couple, rather than like, as opposed to like the men expanded it to be 36 and every team plays 8 games. So they
finally added more group stage games on the women's side too, but it's still much narrower for sure.
To have 16, well, there's just enough now when you talk about like the big countries. I mean, like there's enough big teams in France and England and Spain, and then all the other countries, it's more and more. So we'd hope that would grow. But one NSIC conference result to note, non-conference result from the conference is Minnesota State beating Emporia, who were ranked 17th at the time. So that's the only, in terms of opportunities for the NSIC teams to have tough non-conference ones, this was really the only one where someone scored a noteworthy win so far. In terms of, we had some other people get some tough tests, but no one, I don't think, had anything in terms of an upset.
I think you would add, at least for a really high quality win in terms of how it'll help their RPI later on, I think you would add St. Cloud beating Northern Michigan.
I didn't see that. I missed that.
So St. Cloud last year, people might remember they did the Michigan trip, where they do Michigan Tech and Northern Michigan in Michigan. This year, those Michigan schools came over, and I think you probably heard Mark talking to Anna about Duluth also played one of them. And so St. Cloud dropped a tough 0-1 loss to Michigan Tech, but then actually got a 2-1 win over Northern Michigan. So that's, like Mark said, that and Mankato's win over Emporia
tournament teams
is as close as you can get to a really nice marquee non-conference result. And so a nice pickup for St. Cloud. They're working a few freshmen into their rotation. And so I was just scanning through earlier today, and Bemidji dropped some tough results, but again, some of these opponents are just good tests. And so the result isn't always like the end all be all, but later on, once we get to the central region rankings, so that, and the D2 national tournament is very regionalized. And so it does impact things like that. So it will impact like the marginal placement at the end.
Shout out also to Crookston, by the way, talking about just like they just lost 3-0 to UMD. So, I mean, it was a loss, but 3-0 to their like neighbors who are D1 opponents. I mean, other teams had worse losses to D2 teams. So, I mean, shout out to Crookston for scheduling a tough game like that. And also, I mean, like they're going to take something away. I'm guessing they did a lot of defensive resilience. Also a test for UND to like play with the ball the whole game when they so rarely do. So rarely have, majority possession. But yeah, speaking of that, just a couple games to watch this week. A couple that I wanted to highlight from ESPN Plus, apart from what we already mentioned and so many more. But North Dakota, who I just mentioned, they host Montana. So, of course, we have the Minnesotans at UND, but then Little Angle for Montana, Bayless Flynn of Minnesota Aurora to this summer. She's a longtime Aurora signing. And she has started getting some starts for Montana the last couple of games. So cool to see that connection. You can get that Thursday on ESPN Plus. And then Sunday, you got the Iowa. I don't know if it's Civil War. It's Iowa hosting Iowa State. So when we talked about that connection with Barrett Parton, but then also, of course, Maya Hansen. And then for folks who watch Aurora, I'm blanking on the keeper there at Iowa.
Oh yeah. Taylor Kane, and then did you mention Sophia Bush, who was in Aurora? Yeah, to be honest with you, so I think the football teams down there just played, and they called it the Cy-Hawk game. In soccer, so we can call it the Cy-Hawk game for Cyclones and Hawkeyes. I will say, in women's soccer, this game shouldn't be really even remotely close. So Iowa should be able to put some goals up, so that might mean some Parton and Hansen highlights.
I think we need an all aggregated Iowa Cup anyway. There's so many D1 teams. It has to be an aggregated results. So I'll work on that.
The Corn Cup, yeah, for sure. And then another Minnesota angle is head coach Chris Satowski, I believe, for Montana, has some roots both coaching for the North Dakota schools, but also coached for some Minnesota colleges before that, I believe at St. Kate's. And so the Montana head coach has always had a decent angle of sort of pulling in Minnesotans, so a fun angle on there too.
Very cool. All right. Well, we got through it, you guys. Next week, we're going to, we'll still do some NSIC stuff. We'll focus a little more on different programs that have Minnesotans being highlighted. But yeah, get out and watch some soccer this weekend. Thank you for all your support. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.